I read this to you a few weeks back. Then I was sent this video. No creature strays more easily than a sheep. None is more heedless, and none so incapable of finding its way back to the flock. When once gone astray, it will bleat for the flock and still run in an opposite direction to the place where the flock is. This I have often noticed. This comes from Clark. So this was sent to me a couple of weeks ago, right after I read this. And so I thought, you should see what we do. Little sheepy. Oh, there's a few more just like this one. Show them the other one that where he's pulling it out of the water. I think it's third one down. Just to prove to you that this is not a fluke. And God calls us his sheep. Get the message? Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Shirley, for sending that. And yeah, that's, there's a book back there. It's Shepherd Looks at the 23rd Psalm. I mentioned it before. Philip Keller is a great writer, was a great writer. I mean, he's in heaven. He's not writing anymore. But was a great writer, and he wrote Shepherd Looks at the 23rd Psalm, and that's what he had been, South Africa, later up in Canada, and he observed sheep for years. So he wrote that book based upon the Lord is my shepherd, and then he talks about how needy sheep are. And he wrote some other books about David, wrote a couple of books about David, King David, and a few other classics, but as all the classics go, nobody reads them anymore, and they're out of print. So, but tonight we are in Luke chapter 17. We'll see how far we get. And so I'll just start with verses 1 and 2. It says, and he said to his disciples, and I always highlight that, who is he speaking to? And so you have to consider the audience who he's speaking to. He's not speaking to the multitudes, he's speaking to disciples. So if you're a disciple, he would be speaking to you and I. So he said to the disciples, it is impossible that no offenses should come, but woe to him through whom they do come. It would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were thrown into the sea than that he should offend one of these little ones. The word for offense here is stumbling block is the way you could translate it, but it is scandalon in the Greek language, and that means to scandalize, to create a scandal. It actually, the term means a stick that is bent, and it's a stick that you would use in a trap, a snare, and it is to trip a snare that entangles people, and typically that would be used for an animal, a rabbit or something like that. But it is a trap, if you would have it. And so he's talking about malice here. He says woe, which is an expression of grief or denunciation. And he's speaking about the person that offers the bait. If you offer the bait and you put the bait on a hook and you scandalize somebody, woe is you. And, if you want to consider life, you want to consider what, people have done to other people, it's the tragedy just goes on. People do this all the time. Then he says, it'd be better if a millstone were hung around your neck. Now, you have to understand something about the Jews. They are not a seafaring people. They're not. They have a navy with gunboats and submarines, but they're not a seafaring people. You can go back into the Old Testament and look at Solomon. Solomon hired a fleet of ships. He didn't have a fleet of ships. He hired out, people to go across the seas and bring things back. I think they were 3-year journeys going around all the way to probably the Orient, the Far East, and different things. So the Jews looked at the Mediterranean Sea. Oh, they probably went to the beach, but they didn't want to go out there. They didn't, Davy Jones' locker was not where they wanted to go. That's not. And so this is something that speaks directly to the Jews about their fear of drowning. It's almost like a torment of going to hell. And drowning is probably not the best way that people consider how they want to die. You need to understand that coming into this, that it's specifically dealing with the Jews. And he says, if you stumble one of these little ones, now, we would take that to say, well, maybe children. And it could be that, although that's not what the term means. It means small in size, number, or stature. And stature is the issue. In other words, those who are smart and educated in the world and all that stuff, what do? They take advantage of people that are small in stature, maybe not so educated, and they do what? They stumble them. They ensnare them. Cults do this a lot. Politicians, I'll leave that one alone. It goes on and on and on. And, we've always heard that, that there's the haves and the have-nots, and the whole idea behind tyranny is the fact that the masses, or as, what was it, Lenin said, I can't remember the term now. It's usually on the tip of my tongue, but useless feeders. And that's been used by our people in our government the same way, useless feeders. In other words, that's their attitude towards the uneducated. And so that is what he's speaking of. And you can run with the rest of it about what's going to happen to those people that stumble people and take advantage of people and, don't really care about people. I mean, there's just so many things that are going on. The tragedy of this world and the sin of this world is just It's horrendous. And if we knew it all, we'd be so shocked. That it would be hard for us to imagine God being good. You know, even today with the things that are going on in Israel and Gaza. Now, you know, it's spreading to Hezbollah. It's spreading to Syria. It has the potential to do and I'll let you run with this, Ezekiel 38 and 39, Gog and Magog. Because Russia's involved with this, China's involved with this, certainly Iran is involved with this. And again, I'm not predicting, but it definitely has the signs of all of those different people coming together. The leader of Turkey today came out and spoke against the Jews. Turkey is one of those people in that list of nations, and you know, and it's hard for us to fathom that people could actually look at the pictures that have gone on if you have seen them. And again, you better have a strong stomach if you want to watch the stuff that they're doing and they're publishing online. You know, there's no way anybody can say they're justified. No way. Not in the sense of the slaughter, the wholesale slaughter. So I'll leave that there. I mean, you know, but there is, once again, there's the strong, and then there's the weak. And inside of Gaza is a whole bunch of weak people that just live there. They just live there. This happens to be where they're born. You know, they're being bombed. Egypt won't open up a door for them to get out of Gaza and go to Egypt. They won't do it. They say, no, we're going to leave them there. We're not going to let them out. It's almost like they want to see death and destruction. It's tragic. So it kind of hits home with this. Certainly I've been praying and thinking about this stuff all day and for the last couple of days. So take heed to yourselves. If your brother sins against you, rebuke him, and if he repents, forgive him. If he sins against you 7 times in a day, and 7 times in a day returns to you saying, I repent, you shall forgive him. So it's imperative. This is an imperative command. You know, just like in the Lord's Prayer, what does he say? Forgive those who have trespassed against us, as you forgive us for our trespasses, right? Well, so he uses the term 7 times, and that is used when Peter actually said, how many times should I forgive my brother? Up to 7 times, and Jesus said, no, 7 times 70. 490 times. Now, Chuck Missler years ago said, well, you know, it was 490 years that Israel was in the land, and they did not give the land its Sabbaths. Well, that's 70 Sabbaths. That's not 490 Sabbaths. That's not, you know, that's, I understand what he was trying to say, is that, you know, but at the same time, you know, if somebody sins against me 70 times, how, can you remember 70 times? Can you keep track of 70 times? Usually, you know, 4 or 5, we're already mad, and we're already bitter, we're already angry, and if we don't, you know, if we don't deal with it before the Lord, then we can end up in a serious place. And Hebrews tells us about this in Hebrews 12, 14 and 16. the writer saying, "Pursue peace with all people and holiness, without which no one will see the Lord. Looking carefully lest anyone fall short of the grace of God, lest any root of bitterness springing up cause trouble, and by this many become defiled. Lest there be any fornicator or profane person like Esau, who for one morsel of food sold his birthright." What do you know about the Edomites? The Edomites hated Israel. Where did that start? It started with Esau. Esau said it wasn't fair. I should have the land. I should have got the blessing. And so how far did that spread? The Edomites hated Israel. They became one of Israel's mortal enemies, along with the Amalekites and others, if you would have it. Well, let's take it a little bit further. That hits home today. Genesis 16:10 through 12. Then the angel of the Lord said to her, speaking to Hagar, "I will greatly multiply your descendants so that they will be too many to count." The angel of the Lord continued, "Behold, you are with child, and you will bear a son. And you shall call his name Ishmael, which means God hears. Because the Lord has heard and paid attention to your persecution, her suffering, the way Sarah treated her, and she did not treat her well." He says about this child, he says, "Every man's hand will be against him, and he will dwell in defiance of all his brothers." This is amplified. You know who descends from Ishmael? The Arab nations around Israel. You think a root of bitterness doesn't spread? He spread that bitterness, and that bitterness has hung on to those people. A religion came out of it through Muhammad. A bitterness and all the different things that came. And not only are they against the Jews, common enemy, but they're against each other. They're against each other. They fight with one another just as easy as they fight against the Jews. I mean, most of us don't know the difference between Sunni and Shia. There's two different groups, thoughts concerning, Islam. And the Iranians are Sunni. So they have a particular bent that's different than the Shia. And so they'll fight with the Shia, and that's what went on in Iraq, was they came through, Iran came through when we got out of there, and they came through and started persecuting what? The Shia Arabs. And that's what ISIS was actually doing also, slaughtering their own brethren, if you would have it. And so why do I bring all this up? Because it's what the Word of God said. It's what it says. It's not that we choose. I don't choose. I'm not praying just for the Jews. I'm praying for the people in, Gaza. I'm praying for people to get saved in the midst of this tragedy, for people to get saved, for Christians to be able to share their faith, which could cost them their lives, but that they would do that. And there are Christians in Gaza, and there are Christians in Lebanon, there are Christians in Syria. Syria has been one of the most open countries for Christians that there ever was, as far as Arab nations, and they're wholesale slaughtering Christians in Iraq. It's just, it just goes on and on. And yet, God is good. God is going to use it for his glory. Let me qualify one thing here for everybody here that you would understand. Yes, I believe that we are to be a blessing to the Jewish nation, but I do not think they are sinless by any stretch, because they are not. They're one of the most sinful nations on the planet. They are, in many ways. I think I mentioned either here or somewhere, it might have been here, might have been Sunday morning. I mean, pornography, it's a pornography capital of the Europe and the basin of the Mediterranean. Down in Tel Aviv. What does that tell you? I mean, they have a credible, what would you call it, secular population that's into pleasure. And so they are not sinless, but they are God's people. And he will deal with them one day. 2/3 of them will die until they cry out and say, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." God is going to have to put incredible pressure on these hard-hearted, people to get them to look up and acknowledge that Jesus is their Messiah. So that's just biblical, and again, we live in a world that I think it would be a good idea for us to get prepared to share our faith. Because I have a feeling the darkness is not going to stay over there. It's here. And again, I don't want to scare you, but you guys watch what's going on. You see what's going on. And you know what? It may be the greatest opportunity for the church to share our faith. It may be the greatest harvest that we have seen since the early days of the church. Maybe. Because when it gets really dark, people might be looking for light, for answers. And I believe that's what's coming. I do. So I think we need to just get grounded and, I was praying and pondering this, might have been yesterday, but certainly today. Paul was not political. He wasn't. He wasn't political. He didn't walk into a city and say, well, I'm for this senator or that senator, or, look what the Roman government is doing. He didn't do that. He didn't do any of that. He went in there to share the gospel. That's what he did. Oh, that regime persecuted him, actually, took his head. But he countered on that. He countered on that. His goal was to share the gospel and establish the kingdom. So was Peter and John. They had one goal. One goal was the gospel. One goal was building the kingdom one person at a time. Or as many would come to, the school of Tyrannus or down at the river or wherever Paul would be preaching, wherever Peter would be preaching. And so it's the same for us. And, I got a call from a guy that's in a political action, group of people, and I'm not opposed to those. But I think we're way beyond pulling a lever for a specific candidate and going, that person's going to be our savior. I don't think that's happening. I don't think these people that are in power are going to let that happen. One way or the other, they're just not. And so, it would be nice to turn back the clock and go back to Petridge Farm, and, Saturday Evening Post and all that stuff. It would be nice to go back there if that place ever even really existed. My mother grew up in the Depression. Emily grew up in the Depression. I know Darlene was on the end of the Depression. Russ and Charlotte. I mean, was it really good in the Depression? No, it wasn't. It was horrendous. We went to war, Food was scarce, jobs were scarce, money was scarce. I still want to find some materials to find out where the church was in that era. I have a feeling probably the church was thriving. Probably so. Anyway, stepping back here, when somebody sins against us, you can't just act like it didn't happen. People make a mistake when they do that. If it's, and again, doesn't mean I have to go kill somebody or impugn somebody or hang them by their heels or take them before the tribunal. I don't. I can forgive people without them ever asking. I can do that. But it's not always possible to do that. It's not really always the way that God wants to accomplish something, because he wants to do a work in the person that offended you. And sometimes those people need to be confronted with their sin so that they will see their sin, because it may be habitual, and that they can turn from that. This is what Ephesians 4:2 says, with all humility, forsaking self-righteousness. Quite often, I get self-righteous. They shouldn't have done that to me. I wouldn't do that to them. I'm better than that. Am I? I think I had to be forgiven for some great sins. Some that I would never even tell you. Right? And gentleness, maintaining self-control with patience, bearing with one another in unselfish love. What does it mean to bear with one another? It means to take a burden. People are a burden. We're difficult. We're sheep. We jump back in the ditch. We do dumb things. We say dumb things. We, step on each other's toes. We do lots of stuff like that. Remember, he's speaking to the disciples here, right? In Ephesians 4:15, but speaking the truth in love. So if I'm going to go confront somebody, I need to go speak to them lovingly. Doesn't mean I ignore truth. I can't go with the anger and the vitriol. And so that's what it says. So I already dealt with the Ishmaelites and the Edomites, and there's plenty of mites around the nation of Israel. Canaanites and the Outsites and they all hated Israel. I already dealt with the thing about Peter. He thought he was doing great. And Peter said, that, he should forgive up to 7 times. Therefore, the kingdom of heaven is like a certain king who wanted to settle accounts with his servants. When he had begun to settle accounts, one was brought to him who owed him 10,000 talents. Now, this might as well be our national debt. It's just an astronomical amount of money. So, but he was not able to pay his master. And his master commanded that he be sold with his wife and his children and all that he had, that payment be made. He couldn't pay that payment. There's no way. The servant therefore fell down before him, saying, Master, have patience with me, and I will pay you all. Then the master of that servant was moved with compassion, released him, and forgave him the debt. He would never be able to pay this debt. Never. But that servant went out and found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii. And he laid hands on him and took him by the throat, saying, Pay me what you owe me. So his fellow servant fell down at his feet and begged him, saying, Have patience with me, I will pay you all. And he would not, but went and threw him into prison till he should pay the debt. So when his fellow servants saw what had been done, they were very grieved and came and told their master all that had been done. Then his master, after he had called them, said to him, You wicked servant, I forgave you all that debt because you begged me. Should you not have had compassion on your fellow servant, just as I had pity on you? And his master was angry and delivered him to the torturers until he should pay all that was due to him. So my heavenly Father also will do to you, if each of you from his heart does not forgive his brother his trespasses. Boy, that hits home. The pettiness that I can have. Obviously it's a parable, but it's speaking directly to Peter and the disciples and to us. And it's like, what have I been forgiven for? Again, things that I will never tell you. The slate was clean for me. And I'm amazed. I'm amazed. I should always be amazed, but I'm not. Sometimes I major in the minors. You know? I major in the minors and I kill people. I destroy people. And then thank God for the Spirit of God, He convicts me. Says, do you really want to go down that road? No, I don't. I want to be forgiven. Yeah, I thought so. I've already forgiven you. You need to do the same. You need to do the same. The rest of this is the disciples understanding at this point that it's going to require faith for them to act upon what Jesus just taught them. And so he says, so the Lord said, if you have faith, or the apostles said to the Lord, increase our faith. So the Lord said, if you have faith as a mustard seed, you can say to this mulberry tree, be pulled up by the roots and be planted in the sea, and it will obey you. So a mulberry tree, according to, according to Gelden Hughes, the root of the mulberry tree was thought to be extraordinarily strong. It was thought that this tree could stay rooted for 600 years. So I highlighted, where's my roots? Where's my roots? Am I rooted in bitterness? Am I rooted in self-preservation? Am I rooted in self-righteousness, or am I rooted in mercy? Because that's what was just taught. I should be rooted in mercy. Because if I want mercy, I have to give mercy. Verse 7. Which of you, having a servant plowing or tending sheep, will say to him when he has come in from the field, 'Come at once and sit down to eat'?" Now, plowing is hard work. Tending sheep, obviously, we saw just one troubled sheep, let alone a whole flock of them. Would definitely keep you busy. But will he not rather say to him, when he comes in from the field, and his master says, but will he not rather say to him, "Prepare something for my supper, gird yourself and serve me till I have eaten and drunk, and afterward you can eat and drink"? Does he thank that servant because he did the things that were commanded him? I think not. So likewise you, when you have done all those things which you are commanded, say, "We are unprofitable servants. We have done what was our duty to do." Now he's speaking to the disciples here. And in this mini parable, Jesus gave us the right attitude, his pleasure before our own, his people preferred before ourselves, his name before my name. And again, this is for disciples. That's who he's speaking to. Spurgeon wrote this: "What have we done for him compared with what he has done for us?" Our service put beside Jesus Christ is like one single grain of dust put in comparison with the mighty orb of the sun. Spurgeon and his wit. Is there rewards? Of course there is. This side of heaven. There are. There's benefits to serving the Lord, there is no doubt. But quite often I can get into mode where God owes me something because I served him. No. He doesn't owe me anything. I owe him everything. Matthew 25:21 through 23. His Lord said to him, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord." And he goes on and talks about the guy with the 2 talents and the 1 talent, and the guy that hid the talent, and he didn't get nothing. In fact, what he got was taken away from him. But God will reward us for faithfulness. Quite often he'll reward us here and now in this life, but certainly our rewards are to be sent forward, treasures in heaven. Psalm 68:19 and 20. Blessed be the Lord who daily loads us with benefits, the God of our salvation. Our God is the God of salvation, and to God the Lord belong escapes from death, which means setting us free. That's what he did. That's the first benefit that I received, was salvation and freedom. But it says he loads us daily with benefits. Has he answered prayers for you? Has he blessed you? Has he done things that, and maybe you don't share them with everybody else, and that's okay. Sometimes it's just for you. But it causes praise to rise. It causes gratitude to rise. I mean, I'll just be honest with you. I was shocked Sunday. I don't deserve the outpouring of love the way that I see it. My wife does, there is no doubt. But I was just floored. I'm floored at the gratitude of this church towards me. And you think that doesn't produce praise? Absolutely it does. I can't say thank you enough. And it's the heart, more so than anything else, the heart. I took that card home. Obviously, there wasn't enough room on the card itself for all the names and all the things. So there was 2 extra sheets in there with people writing stuff. Floors me. What do I deserve? I just do my job. You know? I do my job. I do what God asked me to do. And I get rewards for it. Love poured out into my heart and my family. So thank you very much. And but it produces something within me. 11 through 19. It happened as he went to Jerusalem that he passed through the midst of Samaria and Galilee. Then as he entered a certain village, there met him 10 men who were lepers, who stood afar off. They lifted up their voices and said, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. So when he saw them, he said to them, Go, show yourselves to the priest. So it was that as they went, they were cleansed. One of them, when he saw that he was healed, returned with a loud voice, glorified God, fell down on his face at his feet, which is worship, giving him thanks, and he was a Samaritan. He would not have been able to go to the temple and make that offering. He's the one guy that couldn't go of the 10. He would not be accepted. He couldn't do that. But he makes another offering. Gratitude. Gratitude. Right? So Jesus answered and said, Were there not 10 cleansed? But where are the 9? Were there not any found who returned to give glory to God except this foreigner? And he said to him, Arise, go your way, your faith has made you well. Gratitude. Truth be known, we were all a bunch of lepers. Leprosy is a type of sin. It destroys, it decays, it separates, leaves you alone. You can't touch anybody. You can't be in the same room with anybody. Everything that you own has to be burned. You have to go live with other lepers. You can't get a regular job. It's a type of sin. It actually decays your body. It reduces your nerves to where you can't feel anything. There's a movie years ago, Steve McQueen played in it, Dustin Hoffman. It was called Papillon. It was about these 2 French guys that were shipped off to a prison island in South America. It's all about Papillon trying to get off that island, trying to escape. And that's really and he's got this friend, Dustin Hoffman. While he's trying to escape, he ends up with this guy that has leprosy. And this guy's got a boat, and he can help him get someplace. So this guy, the way they showed it in the movies, his fingers are big stumps, and they're white, and they're decaying, and he's got rags around his head, and his face is all decaying. Hollywood. And so Dustin, our Steve McQueen, is sitting there with him, and this guy wants to play a little game with him. He has the power to get him out of French Guiana, get him a boat, and get him down to the coast so he can, get to someplace where he wants to go. So he's sitting here smoking this cigar, the leper is. And so he hands the cigar to Steve McQueen with these hands that are decaying and rotting, with these lips that are decaying and rotting. And then, it's obvious the guy's got leprosy. And Steve McQueen's got a choice that he's got to make. Is he going to smoke the cigar? And if it's deadly leprosy, which there's a type of leprosy that spreads, and then there's a type that doesn't spread. 50-50 chance. So Steve McQueen grabs a cigar. He's so desperate to get out of that prison island. And he takes a puff of it, hands it back to the guy. And the guy looks at him and he said, "How did you know that my leprosy wasn't contagious?" I can't remember what Steve McQueen's response was, but, I just remember that. Leprosy's deadly. If you get it, it kills you. It's going to kill you whether it's contagious or whether it's not. And the Jews had strict, discipline concerning leprosy. You were actually quarantined in their place. So you have leper colonies. I know the movie Ben-Hur, Charlton Heston plays a Jewish young man that has a sister and a mother, and he ends up coming back to Jerusalem, and they told him that his mother and his sister were in the leper colony. And the moral of the movie was Jesus shows up. It doesn't show him, but he shows up during this event, and he actually healed his mother and his sister of leprosy. It's a fictitious story, but very powerful message. Do you know that everybody around us has leprosy? Everybody. Hamas has leprosy. Everybody has leprosy. Everybody's decaying and dying. And everybody's trying to stay alive. Life is offered to them, eternal life through Jesus Christ. It may be that they get healed. It may be they don't. I've told you about the guy that I ran into out at the air park that had AIDS. Called me up and said, "Man, I had to stop and get some drugs so I can get back to California. Can you put me up in a hotel?" For some reason, God touched my heart. He went to a Calvary Chapel somewhere in California. I showed up. I asked him, "Hey, how am I going to know you?" Well, he said, "I'm 6'4" and I weigh 90 pounds. It'll be obvious. Skin and bones. So I showed up, and there he was. I gave him a hug, paid for his room. We talked. One of the most amazing stories I've ever heard. He thanked God that he has AIDS. He said, "If I didn't have AIDS, I would not have returned to Jesus Christ." And then he went on to talk about the vileness of the lifestyle that he had lived, the bondage that he had found himself in. And he had gone to the East Coast to share his faith with his mother and his father in Maryland and his sister, and they absolutely rejected him. Doesn't mean that's permanent. Maybe they got saved later. I have no idea. But I know that he wasn't worried about dying. God didn't heal him. He didn't care. He healed his soul. He made him ready to meet Jesus. Everybody around us, everybody out there, They're all lepers. They are. They're decaying. They're dying. They have a destiny with death. It's killing them. Physically, maybe they look like they're fit and trim. I go to the gym. I was there yesterday. You know, I try to hide, but I can't. Can't go to the gym and hide. You know, my belly sticks out. You know, I get on a bike for 10 minutes and huffing and puffing. Then I go to another bike, 10 minutes, huffing and puffing. Then I do a little bit, you know, do my arms a little bit, do my arms a little more, do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. By half an hour, I'm out of there. And I walk out with my big old belly and trying to hide it and cover it up, and it's like, there's no use. And I look at all these people, and, you know, there's men and women both that are fit and trim. They're in the gym every time I go there. They, you know, because of their physical physique, to me it seems like they strut across the floor. Now they don't, they just have muscles. And I don't have any. But what are they all doing? I mean, I would imagine there's some believers in that group, I have no doubt. But they're trying to live. Trying to live. Can't blame them. They don't know any better. So, no. God would have us to be full of mercy. You know, have me to be full of mercy, because I can be cut short, calloused, hard-hearted. Get out of my way. I don't care what you're doing. I'm busy about my own business. I'm going to the church to preach. Get out of my way. Yeah, that kind of attitude. It's like, man. Anyway, Father, thank you for your word. Thanks for those who came to hear it. Lord, I think we're cut to the quick some ways. But Lord, we thank you for having mercy upon us, for loading us with those benefits. Father, that, Lord, our service to you is preparing treasures for us in heaven. Lord, and I believe everybody in this room wants to be able to meet you in the air and look at you with our head held high and hear you say, well done, good and faithful servant, and enter into the joy of the Lord. Our life is there. Oh, we have this life to live, and there are certain joys in this life. There is no doubt. Family, vacations, sometimes a good meal. Sometimes in my case, like Sunday morning, where I'm just overwhelmed with love and by a group of people that I'm just floored. So a wife that loves me. So Lord, we have been loaded with benefits. We have been blessed, and you will continue to bless us. But Lord, we are called to bless you. So, Lord, I ask and pray, God, you work in our hearts. Change the lens, I know, of my mind, my heart, my thinking towards the people that are around me in this city. So that, Lord, I look at them the way you see them, not the way that I can be so callous to. So, Lord, we lift up LaShonda to you, and she's here. She's sitting here hearing your word. But, Lord, the battle rages. And, Father, I ask and pray that you give Ron wisdom, strength, power, Lord, of your Spirit. Give him the words to speak. Also, give him the words not to speak when he's not supposed to be speaking. So we ask and pray for restoration, for mercy, for your power to be manifest in LaShonda's life. Lord, open up her thinking and her understanding to who you are, that she can stand against the wiles of the devil, that she can resist the devil, and that he has to leave her alone. I can't do that for her. Nobody here in this room can do that for her. We can pray for her, but Lord, you got to bring that kind of revelation yourself to her and to Ron. So we expect great things, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.